Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Alex Varkatzas to the podcast. You probably know Alex as the former frontman of Atreyu. Alex has a new band called Dead Icarus, and their new full-length album, Zealot, is out tomorrow on MNRK Heavy. Alex talks about feeling like he was losing his voice and perspective with Atreyu, why he decided to step aside, still feeling like he had something to say musically, connecting with Gabe for Dead Icarus, and more. I loved Dead Icarus's debut EP that came out earlier this year, but Zealot has a lot more to offer sonically and creatively. It's an excellent record, so make sure you give it a spin when it drops. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of As the Story Grows. If you are not already subscribed, I would love it if you subscribed on your podcast platform of choice. If you're new to the show, welcome. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you enjoy it and think somebody else might, I would love it if you shared this episode or the podcast in general with them. You can find links in our show notes to our Discord server, for our mailing list over on Substack, or you can support the show financially over on Patreon. Enjoy today's chat with Alex from Dead Icarus.
Hear me all right?
Yep, you sound great.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's start with a question I'm sure you don't get asked about a lot, which is kind of the way press has changed. I mean, if we just talk about like peak Atreyu era, I'm sure you were doing press with like, Revolver, Alternative Press, whatever, Kerrang, whatever magazines were there. Is it, I don't know, do you appreciate kind of, having more outlets in this open environment to do press and have an opportunity to talk to people? Or is it just like you liked having those like 4 or 5 whatever outlets you were always going to talk to?
I think in the past at a certain point, I kind of got over doing any sort of press.
Yeah.
And I would just give kind of shitty, cagey answers or say ridiculous things in order to try to generate some press. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I think now I like it. I like a good conversation. The way I look at it these days is if anybody wants to take the time to talk to me and finds what I have to say interesting, whether it's about Dead Icarus or music in general or at my Pat time in Atreyu, anything like that, I'm happy to discuss pretty much everything as much as I can. You know what I mean? With whomever is interested, I'm not partial. I would talk to Revolver just like I would talk to somebody it's their first time doing something and I'm their first guest on, you know what I mean? They would get the same amount of bullshit.
That's cool. Let's I don't want to spend too much time on your past history because you have this incredible new band, but what was your kind of gateway into music and like hardcore?
The first band that I really fell in love with was Rancid. Okay. So punk rock kind of started my journey, and punk rock is like hardcore's brother or cousin. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then from there, I got super into like hardcore. My favorite hardcore bands are like Hatebreed, this band Indecision, that would later become this band Most Precious Blood, Bane. I love Bane. So I love like that sort of hardcore, and then that kind of segued me into I like melody. I like and there's not a lot of that in any of those bands, basically, that I mentioned, except for Rancid, I guess. So I got super into all the Swedish metal of the early 2000s, Soilwork, In Flames, Darkane, Dark Tranquility. Cradle of Filth is not melodic metal, I guess, but there's still definitely a sense of a melody in there. Cradle of Filth, Demu. So yeah, that's kind of how my path progressed, was through to punk, hardcore, and then metal, which is why the bands that I've been in sound like a mix kind of all those things. You know what I mean? Because I wear my influences on my sleeve, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm sure like with the Atreyu and even with Dead Icarus, you have a conglomeration of people who are all bringing their influences and inspiration to the table and stylings, right?
When Atreyu was really like at its beginning, it was basically me, Dan, with a little bit of Brandon.
Okay.
And then over ever since, I would say at the end of the Curse, starting at Death Grip, and then moving forward exponentially after Death Grip, Brandon became more involved in the writing process for Atreyu, as did the other members, and then there's a certain point when Atreyu started doing like Lead Cells, Paintbreaker, and that kind of stuff. Like Feldman plays a part in writing. And then even right before I left the band, there was a bunch of guest writers and stuff coming in with the band and writing together with them. And and to be totally honest, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
I don't want someone else's feelings and emotions. What makes like a lot of bands special to me, the bands that I like the most write all their own stuff. And maybe they have a guest guy on one song, or one person, comes in and they write one song together. But I want to hear how In Flames interprets pain, torment, love, life, and joy. I want to see how Hatebreed interprets emotions, how Josta does, because having these people's their unique vision and their unique feeling and how we quantify it into sound is what makes music special to me. And that's what pumps me up about Dead Icarus is it is just me and Gabe. Brandon plays the drums and writes amazing, like next level drum parts. But as far as like, who's calling the shots with all my vocals is pretty much me. Yeah. And then if something is dog shit, which it hasn't come up yet, Gabe will be like, yeah, that's dog shit. I trust him with that. And vice versa. If he came to me with the song and I was like, bro, this is not it. This is the opposite of it. This is shit. I would tell him nicely. We haven't come into that situation yet, but I like having, it's just us. I don't want outside input. I don't want respectfully or disrespectfully like John Feldman's input. I don't come up with the way he came up. And that's not to say that like I didn't enjoy Goldfinger back in the day for what they did, but that's because that was him. That was him doing it, and I liked his input and his thought in that band. Having all these producers and co-writers, and it's not my thing. And I respect it. And we're also in the day and age of the collab, which is a totally different thing. You know what I mean? Having someone jump on the song for vocals or guitar solo, totally different. I'm open to that. That's fun. But I like hearing, Tomas from At the Gates, like this is how he feels, and this is the sound that he makes how he feels. You know what I mean? Yeah. No one came in and influenced that. I don't like the outside influence. I don't need or want producers telling me what to do. Almost like I don't want a record label to come in and tell me what to do. I just don't like that shit. Which is maybe I would have gone farther in my life if I learned how to play that game and appreciate that. But I don't. And I will.
Sure. I mean, I think if you kind of come up through punk rock and hardcore and that's instilled in you, you have that, like, you're not telling me what the fuck to do, right? Like,
yeah, you know what I mean? I think maybe at a certain point, Rancid wrote some of their music with Brett Gurewitz, the Epitaph and the producer and all that stuff. But it's like one dude and then their whole band. And Tim is a songwriter. Tim writes, I think he writes like 600 songs a year. I'm making up that number. And then Lars is a songwriter. Lars plays in like 7 bands and writes for a bunch of them. Like, again, I'm making up these numbers. But I mean, that's awesome. There's one dude, I'm so bad with fucking names and stuff, but is it the guy from Wage War? Is like a prolific writer, right? Like he writes for Falling in Reverse, he writes for all these things. That's like super interesting to me. Like that dude is fucking interesting. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's cool. And I appreciate that for all those people. But like, I like keeping less cooks in the kitchen. 2, 3 people, maybe a 4th. And then past that, it's like, fuck, like we're all going to feel or hear something differently. And I don't want you ultimately to like win over my vocal idea. I want to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right or wrong.
Yeah. Did that kind of start with Hollywood and maybe now this pressure to recoup a bunch of money or like have a single and sell a shit ton more records?
I don't know how it was looked at through Hollywood's eyes far as like if Lead Cells Paper Anchor was a success or not. I do remember that the song Falling Down, which is my least favorite Atreyu song ever, respectfully, was the most radio successful. I think it crossed over from like active or hard rock and was on like the actual alternative charts pretty high for a while. Mm-hmm. and to me, that doesn't like quantify success or failure. You know what I mean? I remember Hollywood, bless their heart. I'm glad they gave us a chance. We got some money out of that. But, I got an A&R dude, respectfully, because I don't have any animosity toward this dude at this point, was calling me, telling me what I need to name the songs.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't. And I was younger, and there was a lot of outside influences, pressure, and we're arguing over like, I wanted to call the song Bull or something else. And he's like, no, it's got to be Becoming the Bull. Or I think that was the song. And I was like, fuck, like whatever. Like, dude, stop calling me and sending me emails about this. We're going to do it. We'll change the name of the song. Just leave me alone about this.
Yeah.
I hate that. I don't want that. And what was super freeing when Gabe and I wrote the EP, the Ad Infernum EP for Dead Icarus, was there was nobody, like there was no record label. It was like me funding it and Gabe and I figuring out shit. You know what I mean? So there wasn't anybody, like I was the record label and I was like, yeah, I'm happy with this. So this fucks and let's go move forward. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then when we ended up signing with MNRK Heavy, they've had this many phone calls. That's a 0 with me about how we should sound and what we should do. I've been doing this like 20 plus years. This is where I sound like a bloated jerk for a second. I got 2 gold records with, one of them without the influence of a producer. Mm-hmm. I got like 2 gold singles or some shit. Not that means success, but it's like, obviously like there was something I was doing right there. I just, we don't want that outside stimulus sucks and it ruins music. For me at least. Maybe some bands it really helps or is really good for commercial hits or singles. I don't like that. I don't do that. Maybe I should. Maybe I'd have a bigger house.
Oh, maybe. But if you're, I don't know, losing your integrity, then who the fuck cares if you have an extra 1,000 square feet, right? Like,
yeah, right. And I feel at the end of Atreyu, respectfully, only speaking for myself, I had lost my integrity. Like, I don't know what the fuck I was doing there. And I think that, in a mature way, I could say it is for the best of everybody that I wasn't involved anymore, because my heart and what I want to do is clearly different. Like you clearly hear the newer Atreyu stuff versus the Dead Icarus stuff. Like they don't sound very similar. Or respectfully, for better or worse, like we don't sound like AC/DC either, and I like AC/DC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, that's what I want to do. This is the vein that I want to be in. I wish I could just be in a straight metal band. I don't know how to do it. It always ends up being like metalcore and hardcore, but I think I need to grow my hair, purchase a couple like fucking Cradle of Filth shirts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe a Venom shirt, and then I'll be set. But
yeah.
I like metal. I like breakdowns. I like screaming. I love melody too. I want to have it. So, sorry for my ramble. I just came back from working out and I'm pounding coffee and protein right now. So it could get more intense as the caffeine kicks in.
Yeah. Let's go. Were you already feeling like you were, at the end of your time in Atreyu before lockdowns hit and that kind of just solidified the need to get away? Or was there some clarity you, I don't know, discovered in lockdown when you took a step back for a moment?
Trying to figure out the political answer to everything because I'm too old to be rocking the boat anymore. I don't care. I just want to have a stress-free day. Yeah. I was mentally checked out of Atreyu almost after we came back from hiatus. We came back from hiatus, we did the Long Live record. I'm so checked out. I'm bad with titles and everything too because I was just I had my head up my ass to a degree, and I can admit that. But we came back. We made a little bit more of a heavier or extreme record with a little bit more screaming and a little bit more teeth to it than we had in years. I was super happy with it. I thought we were all super happy with it. We didn't do the proper touring. We didn't want to go out like enough, and we were just coming back from being gone for 4 years, and some of us had just had kids, I mean, myself included, and it was kind of just weird to like go and try to be a full-time band again. The record subsequently didn't kill it. And I think that was kind of like the nail in the coffin for those sort of teeth. And then it went back to making records with John Feldman and just kind of a different environment that for wasn't the way I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I think that I was mentally kind of out of it then. I was there physically, but I was out of it. I had people come up to me on this last tour that Dead Icarus just did, and they're like, yeah, I saw you the last time with your Atreyu, and like, dude, like you seem different now. Like the way that you are, is just different. And it's because I'm happier, I'm more fulfilled. You know what I mean? And I think that's the secret. You know what I mean? I would rather play to 40 people and have my heart be full of joy than playing to like 2,000 people and feel kind of like a fraud. I think at the end, not saying anything about Atreyu, the music, like I felt like I was like I didn't belong. And how do you quantify that to people that you've known and been close to for 20 years that you built this thing with? And it was a difficult time. And it was a difficult time when we parted ways. That was pretty hard on me. But I think you've got to be like, sometimes certain people have got to be humbled and broken sort of to become more appreciative of even the small things. And that kind of needed to happen to me. I'd lost feelings, if that made sense, like happiness, joy, anger. I was good with anger. But even then I lost the give a fuck to be like super angry, which is weird for me. Yeah. And now I don't know, man, things are just different, but yeah, I was probably checked out a little bit before I actually, we officially parted ways. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'm checked back in now, man. Like I stopped listening. I even stopped listening to music and that I loved. I didn't listen to, and new bands. Like I had no idea. People would talk to me about like a new band, and I would sit there and be like, "Dad, I have no idea who this is." And they're like, "Dude, they're huge. They're like bigger than most things that you know of. They're drawing like 3,000 people a night." I can't remember what band it was, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll have to go check it out." I didn't never do it. And now, it's totally different. Like, I'm just kind of reignited with a passion to just listen to music and enjoy it and appreciate like how far extreme music has come and how many different unique bands have their own spin on it. Like I said this in another interview, I don't necessarily like listen to a ton of it, like deathcore and stuff like that, but like the vocals that the dude from Lorna Shore and Slaughter to Will. Prevail, Will and Alex Terrible, it's like, holy shit, you guys, like this is fucking cool. I can't do that. Like, first off, I don't have the want or the time to practice to learn how. I'll just do me. But that's cool, and their bands are huge, right? And that's so cool, because to me the thought of a band with vocals like that a decade ago being this big was just simply like not a thing. Like Whitechapel's been around forever. Whitechapel's carried that torch, you know what I mean? Too. And to see them like more recognized the past couple years, like that's super cool and interesting to me. It's awesome, you know what I mean, that there's more of a space for the extreme stuff now. I think is great,
Yeah, for sure. On your vocal front, it's fun. I went back to listen to Suicide Notes, but like your vocals on this new record and the EP compared to then, it's like this vast improvement. Like it sounds incredible, and I'm sure that's just years of touring and recording and time.
Honestly, it's the past. Sorry to cut you off, but it's like the past 4 years of practicing. Okay, I did not practice in Atreyu. I never practiced screaming in Atreyu. And then when we started to have like a couple melodic passages, I would practice those before I had to go record them. Okay. And sometimes we would record stuff on the fly. So we would just like, they're like, okay, this is what when we started working with Feldman and working in that environment, like you write the song that day, you record the song that day. And Atreyu normally didn't work that way. So I would have time in the past, like on Death Grip, I'd be like, well, this is what we're going to do. We'd have demos. I would practice that part of the demo. It would sound okay, whatever. And then Feldman, it would be on the fly. And then I'd learn it. And then I'd go back maybe a week or two later and hit it again a little bit better. And then after that, I was done. And there was definitely some room for improvement there. And I think that's all part of like my being humbled part and my journey, where it's like, okay, I'm not at the bottom, but I'm at like zero right now. I'm at at a ground level with Dead Icarus. I can do whatever I want vocally, and I was hearing a lot of melody in the songs for how bone crushing and gnarly they are at certain points. There's also moments that Gabe leaves that we discussed that we want there for melody. Like we love melodic metal, and we want that in there. And when I first did the vocals for all the EP songs, it was all screaming. Like it was like two different types of screams, and that was it. And I wrote the songs. I did like my own pre-production at home in my little studio here. And I was pissed. I was just like, this sucks. Like, it doesn't suck, but I didn't like it. It wasn't it didn't feel right for the songs. It was like, there's more here. So I kind of took some time with each song, longer than I needed to. Well, not longer than I needed to, as long as I needed to get it right. And I would just sit there and I would go through, I would try any voice that I wanted that felt good. Like, from whatever, like they all have names now, like false chord or fry scream, clean singing. One is I call Hetfield on steroids, or like it's like Hetfield on steroids meets Scott Weiland on like yelling. I played with those voices a lot, and I tried to get somewhere where I was comfortable, and I developed a couple ones that I'm more comfortable with that I really like to use. And I was like, all right, I'm going to incorporate this now in the music to give it more dynamics. I don't know. I don't know how many more swings I'm going to have at the bat, to be honest with you. So I figured, man, if this is my last, I look at everything as my last swing now. I'm like, if this is my last shot at making a record, I want to try all the things that I want to try. I want to push myself vocally as far as I can. And it took, like, I had to practice a shitload. So like, compared to like Suicide Notes and stuff, I was just young. I would go into the studio, go balls out, blow up my voice by the time the sessions were all done. And that was it. And now with this, like, I worked on strengthening my voice. I worked on switching from the singing to screaming and back and forth. That was more for live, in recording in the studio. That's not the way that we record, but I needed to be more. I wanted to be more. I felt like there was more in there. And then that even got me focusing on some of my screaming stuff too, where I was like, okay, like I can go a little bit lower at times. So I want to try to like work that voice. And there's a couple of moments I get as low as I'm going to go. Someone said it was a guttural, and I was like, yeah, it's like a baby guttural. Compared to like the dudes we talked about earlier, it's not in the same. It's not coming from even the same place. Like I haven't experimented with that. It's just as low as I can go in my screaming tone. So I hit a little bit of that. I hit a couple. It's harder for me to hit that high shrieking. There's a high shrieking scream I did at the beginning of Bleeding Mascara. That I kind of try to use a little higher one every now and then. I just try to be varied. I tried to get as many like good voices as I can and work on them and put them all in the barrel and shoot them at the right times. Whereas in the past, it was like, I'm going to scream basically one type of scream throughout the whole song. And then once we started working with Felbin, I was going to like scream a tiny little bit. And then there was going to be a little bit of like melodic stuff going on here and there. But there was already a better singer in Atreyu. It didn't make sense for me to be doing it when I got a powerhouse behind me. Like I feel like that loses a little dynamics. Man, I need to figure that out, because this isn't the first time I've had the problem with that word. I need it. What's the point? Like I want that texture. I want the roller coaster to go up. I want the roller coaster to go down. If the roller coaster just stays in one spot, I don't know. It's not as exciting for me.
Yeah. How did you and Gabe meet, and at what point did you two decide, like, okay, we need to work on music together?
So I had the idea, I wanted to do Dead Icarus, and I started working with some people that put Gabe and I kind of together. It was like, I got this guy that you should meet and talk to and see if you vibe with. So Gabe and I got on the phone. I went and checked out Enterprise Earth a little bit first, because I wanted to hear what it was all about, and I was pretty, I don't want to say not like taken aback, but just like, oh my God, like this is nuts. This dude can write, and he's got some serious chops. I don't want to kiss his ass too much. He doesn't get like an ego or anything. He's very rare in that way, but like this dude shreds, and he's a very great songwriter. Like, okay, we should talk at least. And we talked, and we kind of vibed right away. We got along very well. And then, we started making music. I'll give credit to Scott Lee and Mike Milford for two characters that got me and Gabe talking and got the ship going, sort of.
Nice. How'd you guys get connected with MNRK Heavy? And was there at any time a conversation that like, we just want to keep this independent and not worry about labels?
There was that conversation really wasn't a thing because of how much capital it takes to kind of like get things going and do music videos and pay for recordings and studio, blah, 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 all that stuff. You know, I am a father of 3, musician, and there's just, I wish I had thousands of dollars lying around, to devote to this sort of stuff. And so one of the labels that Atreyu had talked to before they signed with Spine Farm. Yes, I don't know why I brain farted there. So Spine Farm was basically MNRK Heavy, was like E1 or MNRK Heavy. Yeah. And we know Carl Severson, who used to play in this old school band Nora back in the day. And we've known Carl for years. Carl ran Ferret Records. I don't know why I'm like hedging on these things. Like I know Carl ran Ferret. So I hit up Carl and I was like, hey man, I got this new project, check this out. And then Carl and Scott Lee kind of worked together sort of. So they both got involved and they got us more of the quick version of the story it's much longer and boring, was that Carl and Scott led us to MNRK.
Okay. Nice. You guys put out an EP earlier this year. You know, it is rare these days for bands to release an EP and a full length in the same year. Was that a conversation you had to have with the label, or was it just like the EP was ready, let's get it out, and then, you know, the full length was already in the works?
Did the full length come out this year? Did the full length come out at the end of last year?
The full length is coming out.
I mean the EP. Sorry.
The EP. I mean, it says March, so
I guess that's when we released like the last song of it. We started putting out the songs towards the
last year,
in the last quarter, the end of quarter 3. So no, I think it's a good thing. I think in this day and age, you got to release a lot of music quickly. And honestly, after this full length, we probably won't have anything new for a while. So just due to scheduling and juices in the tank and all these other things. So, you know, it was a cool thing. To me, it feels like too long. We recorded. What's crazy is we had this recorded at the end of last year before all the Ad Infernum songs on the EP had even come out. And we had it delivered and turned in January. So it's been a long year for me waiting to this to come out. I don't want to say like I'm over the EP songs, but the EP songs are like from 2021, I think is when we wrote them. There was some behind the scenes pain in the ass, delays, and issues that kind of delayed Dead Icarus coming to fruition, which I know was frustrating to some people as they voiced in the internet comments. And it was more frustrating for me. I would have to respond every now and then. I was like, trust me, it's harder on me than it is on you. And just for the record, none of that had anything to do with Atreyu or Atreyu's team or anything like that. Some people want to go there. And in that case, that has nothing to do with it. It was just some other bullshit trying to get things done, and the pandemic and post-pandemic was very stupid and not easy to do. Yeah. So we finally wrote the full length, turned it in January, like I said, and we've just been like chomping at the bit this whole year. You know, the next single comes out on October 16th, 1 Million Days, and then the record drops on Halloween. So finally we get that out of our system. I haven't listened to my own music so much in years too, and I've had like all year basically to jam this thing, and I haven't got tired of it yet, so I'm happy. Can't wait to get it out there. The EP
is so balls to the wall. Everything's heavy, everything's up here. There's a lot more dynamics on the full length. Was like the EP really just kind of that initial working together, testing out what works, and then we didn't. It's not like we wrote like 6 songs and we're like, all right, we're going to pick the best 4. We just wrote the 4 best songs that we could at the time with the time that we had, you know what I mean? The resources we had, and we went for it. And the first time you're trying to see, I call it like seeing the path in the darkness. And you're trying to see the path in the darkness with someone that you've never seen the path in the darkness before. You know what I mean? So there's definitely like a learning curve of us working together with each other, which was easy, but it's still new. And then trying to figure out like, what do we sound like? You know, what does this really sound like? You know, and I think that the EP helped us kind of figure that out in yeses and nos, where it's like, okay, I like this, maybe not so much of that in the future, maybe more of this.
And then when it came time to do the full length, we had a much clearer idea of what we wanted, which is like still being refined. I think the next record we do, I want even more like gothic keyboards and gothic. I want it like more Cradle of Filth, Children of Bodom influenced with breakdowns. I love that stuff. I love synth. And I think it sounds awesome. The song Unconquerable, we went pretty hard with that sort of vibe and the choral stuff. My wife actually sang on like maybe six songs on the record, to lend that more of like atmospheric, eerie tone to some certain parts. And I definitely think we'll incorporate that more, as long as she doesn't try to kick me out and take over or anything like that, or start her own band. But yeah, man, I'm super stoked on kind of figuring things out, and the dynamicism, like you kind of said, like the record, it feels like a record to me. Like we strategically put there's two really long songs that we cut so that it's like a 1.5-minute track and a 1.5-minute track, and then it goes into like a 5+ minute song. Those were originally like 7-minute songs, and we wanted it to feel like an intermission almost. Like there's this, you hear like the first 3 or 4 songs I think on the record, and then there's this kind of like segue or lull into the next half of the record. There's a little segue, a lull, and then we hit hard with the last 5 or 6 minute song, and we're done. But aside from those songs, I think all the other songs are, I don't want to say fairly short, but they're like 3-minute to 4-minute bangers. Kind of I don't want to say like a punk feel, but definitely more concise and to the point, you know what I mean, than the longer tracks. But we wanted that variance,
Yeah. Album's called Zealot. That's the title of a song on the album. What led to that as the album title? And what was your inspiration writing this?
I think for Zealot in general, it's just kind of my philosophy right now, or it has been with what I'm doing with Dead Icarus and the future and the music that I make, where like Zealot means like a fanatical belief, is the easiest way to put it. It's a fanatical belief. And for me, I have a fanatical belief or devotion to this, in the fact that I don't really care about outside input. I know that a lot of people are going to dig it, and I know a lot of people are going to shit on parts of it, and I don't care. You know what I mean? I could care less, because that's the mark of good art to me. If you make something that everybody likes, like that's weird, right? Like how could everybody really like this? There's very few bands that get to do that. So there's got to be something in there that challenges people enough that even turns some people off. But what will turn some people off will really invigorate others, and you don't know until you go down that path and you take it. And I believe in everything that we did 100%. They're like, I don't want to say risks, but like my vocals, I think, are going to be a lot different than people are expecting at certain points. I would say a little more than half the record, you expect, you getting what you expect. And then maybe 40% of the record and vocals on there are me going to different places that, I haven't really explored too much. And like I said, like, I don't know how many more at-bats I have, so why not do it now? Why not just go for it now? Why like go 3 records in and do it now? I'm just going to go for it now, and we're going to see, what people think and who digs it and who doesn't. But at the end of the day, it only outside of like making money and that sort of shit does that matter. For me personally, like, I'm happy with it. I could be done today and be pleased with that product. I've said it a couple times, like, I wish I could stop. I don't like the music industry. There's some really cool aspects of it, and then there's a lot of shitty stuff. But I can't quit. I have just a few more songs left in me. You know what I mean? And Zealot is the culmination of those things. If I had one last swing, this would be the things I swung with. And I'm not saying I do, but that's how I approach it mentally. So the song Zealot itself just kind of mirrors that. Like, I'm going for it. It doesn't really matter what the outside world has to say, because if you're always looking outside for validation, then you're never really examining yourself and what is important to you. You're just waiting for someone else to tell you that you're good. And that's a real quick real quick in and out of the head of like a Instagram post that tells you you're great, because then you go about your life and you've got to deal with the reality of how you really feel about yourself. You can't just sit there and read great things about yourself all day long. You can't do it for that sort of validation. You have to validate yourself. And Zealot is that like fanatical belief and validation of oneself, or like, I don't care. I've done enough. I've reached out and I've looked outward for many years and I was never satisfied. So I can satisfy myself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Who did the album artwork and kind of all the single artwork that goes with it?
For Zealot is all this guy, David Seidman, super talented, awesome artist. Shout out to him for taking on our project. He's done tons of not tons, but a lot of different album stuff. I know he's done some stuff for Arch Enemy, Ingested. The Ingested piece I saw, the latest Ingested, is what got me wanting to work with him. I thought that thing looks super badass. Yeah. And we basically sent him the record before it came out. Well, obviously it's not out yet. But we sent him the record. We sent him the lyrics because that was important to me. I got some decent visual, metaphorical stuff going on in the lyrics, and I wanted him. I was like, hey, use this as much as you can to create something. So if you deep dive into the lyrics and then you look at the cover of the album, there's a lot going on with like the crown being pulled down over somebody and the hands reaching out, the feathers kind of like Icarus in the background, the betrayal shaped daggers, there's the heart with a knife through it. I'm really going fast through it. It makes it sound not as in depth as he got with it. But yeah, we just gave him free reign. I'm an artist myself, and I don't really like a visual artist as well, and I don't like really tight reins when I create. You know, like a small amount of parameter is good, but too much is constricting, and it kind of kills the art. And in music is the same way. Yeah. If someone is telling me exactly what I need to do, it kills it for me. Yeah. So I was like, hey man, here's the music. Listen to it. I hope you vibe with it, and if you vibe with it, create whatever the vibe like you're feeling when you listen to it. What are you feeling when you read the lyrics? What are you feeling? And then make that, you know, something that looks cool. Yeah. And he nailed it, man. He was awesome. He sent us like one sketch and we all looked at it, you know, myself, Gabe, and management and stuff, and we were like, oh, this is awesome. Yeah. The album artwork's really cool because visually both the EP and this record are like quite stunning, and there's kind of they're very different, but there is this evolution from the EP to the full length where it's like there's a similar vibe, even though they're very different stylistically. Yeah, it's all a little dark, you know what I mean? But without being like shock metal, you know what I mean? Yeah. I did the EP art, all that stuff. Okay. I wanted to do in the vein of like 1940s, 1950s pulp comic book type stuff. Yeah. And it was super fun, and I loved doing it. But then I got here and I was like, man, like I want somebody else. Yeah. You know, I started to try to paint something. I was going to paint like a Reaper and a pink church and some weird stuff. Mm-hmm. And I got like halfway through it and I was like, this isn't going to come out the way I want it to. I want someone just to listen to this and show me their inspiration. And then I saw that the Ingested album, which I don't know the name of, is the latest Ingested. And I was like, fuck, who did this? I got to find out who did this. So I saw that and I was like, okay, I want this too. Then I went and looked him up more. And I realized, because I've seen his art other places, but I wasn't looking for an artist at that point. Yeah. And then I went and really fully deep dove him. Sounds kind of weird. I deep dove him inside. I deep dove inside to his art, and I was like, dude, this is the dude. So I'm glad he was able to do it. He's a pretty busy guy. So man, I was stoked. Thank you, Dave. Album's out, Halloween. There's no tour dates currently on your website. Is the plan to just kind of let the record get out there and let people take it in and look at touring next year? Or? Yeah, I mean, there's constantly stuff going on behind the scenes and conversations. I don't have them, but our management and our booking agent do. And when they're ready to bring stuff to the table, you know what I mean, then we'll announce stuff. There's a couple things mooling around there, but it would be premature for me to say anything because I will get in trouble. Or I will look stupid if it doesn't happen. Then I look like a butthead. Yeah. We're going out with Metallica, everybody. Spoiler alert. So Metallica, now you kind of have to take us out. Two shows. That's it. Yeah. Metallica's definitely listening. Right? I'm pretty sure James cares about what I'm doing. Oh yeah, very deeply. people give it a shot and check it out, and they don't come into it with. It's hard not to go into stuff with preconceived notions. You know, I was in Atreyu for 20 years, and some people really like that, and some people really don't like that. I've said both amazing and not so amazing things in the press over my 20 years of running my mouth, and I don't want any of that to come into it. I just go listen to it. You know, a couple people really put their heart and soul into it, and if you like it and you vibe it, then awesome, then this is for you. And if you don't like it, feel free to shit on me on the internet. I won't care. I won't comment back. It will mean nothing, but you will get to shit on me on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. I want as many people as I can to hear it. I don't care if everybody likes it. I just want as many people as I can to check it out. You know, and that's really it. I'm just excited to put it out into the world.
Yeah. As a person who is not an Atreyu fan, I think it was Zealot was the first single you guys released, like seeing that video, I was like, oh shit, this is really good. And then like listening to the new album, like it's all incredible. So